Our film begins in London at a train station. We see the train conductor Joe after finishing his route heading to the locker room to change clothes. Joe opens his locker and finds a letter saying his promotion request was denied, which upsets him a lot since he has been working for a long time and deserves the promotion. At that moment, the head of the conductors arrives and notices Joe, asking him to take the night shift that's about to start. Joe initially disagrees, but then he sees his colleague Ellen, whom he loves, will be on that train, so he decides to join her. The journey begins, and we see Joe checking tickets, but things aren't going smoothly. Most passengers are misbehaving, yet Joe is forced to keep working. He notices an elderly woman drop her cane and goes down to help her, but he gets startled when he sees her dog under the seat. He decides to continue his work. Later, Joe asks a passenger named Kate for her ticket, and she's surprised to find she lost it. She has to pay a fine of £37. Meanwhile, another young man on the train, Billy, is changing clothes, and Joe notices the restroom is out of service and needs maintenance. Joe then reaches Ellen and invites her to go out with him after the journey ends. But they notice a passenger named Paul watching them, so Ellen feels embarrassed and declines. After each station, some passengers get off, and the train continues toward the last station, with only a few passengers left. Suddenly, the train hits something and stops. A loud scream is heard outside. Joe gets up to check what happened and notices a shadow behind a door. He approaches slowly, and suddenly hears the conductor telling them to stay calm while he figures out the problem. When Joe opens the door, he sees Ellen and the food cart had fallen along with a man named Adrian. Joe helps her while noticing Adrian's jealousy toward Ellen, though he hides it. Ellen is surprised by Adrian's strength, and Joe discovers he has many apartment keys. Adrian explains they belong to his properties. Outside the train, the conductor struggles to lift a deer that the train hit, but the deer is too heavy. Suddenly, a wild monster attacks the conductor. Blood splashes on the train window, and the rain washes it away before the passengers notice. Joe and Ellen enter the conductor's room but don't find him, realizing he went out to check the situation. Joe suggests Ellen offer some snacks to calm the passengers and tries calling the train company for help. They respond that it's too late, and they must wait 4 hours for rescue due to the severe storm. Joe informs the passengers they'll have to wait, and that the conductor has disappeared. Everyone panics. Joe yells, calming them down. Adrian suggests they leave the train and follow its tracks to the next station on foot, but Joe objects, fearing he'll be fired for breaking protocol. The passengers insist, so Joe opens the door and becomes their guide. Once off the train, they form a line and walk together, but the wild monster is watching them from the forest. They see movement and assume it's the conductor. Joe and Ellen go to check, only to find the conductor's remains. Joe warns the passengers about the monster, and they all run back toward the train. The monster attacks, grabbing the leg of an elderly woman, but the passengers hold her safely. She bleeds badly, and Ellen tries to stop the bleeding. Billy and another passenger, Machio, watch the monster from the train window. Joe ensures the train doors are securely locked. The monster scratches at the doors but can't get in. The passengers remain silent until the monster moves away. Joe tries to call the company again, but there's no signal due to the storm. At that time, the young man Billy entered and asked Joe to check the control buttons. Billy revealed that he was an engineering student and could help, so Joe allowed him to inspect the buttons. Billy discovered that there was a fuel leak and that the fuel line had been cut when the train collided and stopped. They needed to repair and weld the line quickly because if the fuel ran out, they wouldn't be able to move. Joe and Billy went out to inform the passengers about what had happened to the train. They asked if anyone could identify the monster from its sound. Some said it was a bear, others said a dog, but a girl named Nina said it was a wolf because it was howling. However, no wolf is that big, so they realized it was a werewolf. Suddenly, they heard a sound inside the train. Joe grabbed a fire extinguisher and went to check, taking Adrian and Billy with him. They traced the sound to the bathroom, and just before Joe struck with the extinguisher, they realized the sound came from Paul. Paul explained he had been trapped in the bathroom for a long time. They took him with them and told him everything that had happened. Paul was very upset, not because of the monster, but because he had missed the station where he was supposed to get off. They noticed Jenny's wound was worsening, and the bleeding wouldn't stop. Kate looked at Nina and saw her sitting alone, looking sad. She went over to her and told her about her daughter, who would soon turn 13, to try to cheer her up. Suddenly, the monster began pounding on the train door again. In one leap, it jumped onto the roof of the train, which caused the train's electricity to fail. Nina's phone got a signal, and her mother called her. Nina tried to explain what was happening, but suddenly, the monster broke the window next to Nina and grabbed her. Her screams echoed as the monster attacked, so Mashio pulled Kate away to protect her. Soon, blood from Nina started dripping from the ceiling of the train. All the passengers rushed into another train car and locked themselves in tightly. Kate continued screaming in panic, desperate to save Nina. However, the elderly man, Jed, Jenny's husband, yelled at everyone to stop panicking and work together. They found a capsule in the train containing tools to defend themselves, which they grabbed. After that, the passengers began reinforcing all the doors and windows around them. A little later, Adrian spoke with Joe and explained that the keys Joe had were for two things: his home and family, and for partying and drinking. Adrian suggested they use the keys to escape and leave the passengers for the monster. Joe didn't respond or pay attention. Suddenly, Jenny returned, bleeding heavily again. Everyone gathered around her, and Jed explained it was just because his wife was exhausted, nothing more. Then Joe noticed that Paul wasn't with them, so he went to remove the barriers on the doors to get through. Joe went to the bathroom and found Paul inside. He told Paul to get out quickly, but the door was stuck, and Paul couldn't escape. Suddenly, the monster lifted the train roof and entered. Joe saw Paul screaming but couldn't help him. Adrian heard the commotion and decided to flee, removing barriers from other doors, but then realized he needed Joe's keys. After the monster finished attacking Paul, it went after Joe. Joe found a door open and quickly got inside, closing it and securing it with many barriers. Adrian tried to break the window with a fire extinguisher but failed because the glass was too thick. Now, the monster managed to open a door and got inside. Ellen froze when she saw the creature, unable to move. Before the monster could reach her, Joe grabbed her and pushed her out of harm's way. He then held the monster and bit it. Suddenly, the monster got struck in the back by an axe, staggering backward. All the passengers attacked the monster together. They pulled an axe from its eye, which enraged the creature. It struck them all and grabbed Billy, lifting him into the air. Adrian struck with the fire extinguisher, and Mashio seized the chance with an axe, hitting the monster until it fell. They checked it and realized it was dead. The group looked at the monster's body and noticed a ring on its hand. They realized it was indeed a werewolf, transformed after being bitten by another werewolf. They looked at Jenny and understood that she might transform too, so they covered her with a blanket over the werewolf's body. Afterward, Jed spoke to the group, explaining that this forest had been the site of many incidents since 1969. He had heard about them as a child but didn't believe them, until now, when everything became clear, and they understood what had happened to the people who disappeared. Suddenly, the werewolf woke up again. It wasn't dead. Joe quickly grabbed a fire extinguisher and struck it in the face. The monster screamed and thrashed as it weakened, but in the forest, another group of werewolves appeared. They had heard their companions' cries and rushed toward the sound. Back with the group, they noticed Jenny's face was transforming. She was becoming a full werewolf. Adrian wanted to take her out, but everyone stopped him. Joe pushed Adrian away, yet he attacked everyone, knocking them to the ground. He grabbed Jenny by the neck and tried to strangle her. They hit Joe from behind and knocked him unconscious, then tied Jenny next to him so she would remain restrained if she transformed completely. After that, Joe, Mashio, and Ellen went to the control room. Billy explained to Joe and Ellen how to repair the train and which buttons to press to move it once fixed. Mashio and Billy got off the train, and Billy went underneath to where the fuel line was leaking. Mashio watched over him and handed him the equipment along with Kate. Kate confessed to Adrian that she was one of the girls who had been with him, though Adrian didn't remember or care. Jenny was struggling to breathe, and her husband tried to ease her suffering. Adrian asked Kate to untie her before she transformed completely. Meanwhile, Mashio heard a sound coming from the forest. It was Nina's voice. He rushed into the forest to reach her. Billy tried to stop him but failed. Mashio continued until he reached the source and saw a werewolf devouring Nina's body. Terrified, he ran, but all the other werewolves formed a circle around him. Billy and the other train passengers heard his screams and cries for help, along with the howls of the remaining wolves. Suddenly, Jenny's howls joined the chorus as the pack closed in. Meanwhile, Billy managed to fix the train and restore power. The werewolves reached the train and noticed the equipment next to where Billy was under it. Billy used his body to work above the train without being noticed, but the werewolves suddenly appeared in front of the train's windshield. Joe started driving the train, while Billy held on for dear life to avoid falling. Jenny had fully transformed. Kate was freed, but Jenny tried to attack her husband. Adrian helped restrain her, but Jed got angry and pushed him aside. A werewolf opened the door behind Kate and tried to pull her out. She called for Adrian, but he threw her along with the werewolf out of the train to protect himself. Kate and the werewolf fell into the forest as the train moved away. Kate turned and saw the werewolf attacking inside the train again. Jenny tried to bite Jed, but Adrian grabbed a pipe wrench and struck her leg, knocking her down. Jenny quickly got up and bit Jed in front of Adrian. After she finished attacking him, Adrian tied her up in the driver's room. Suddenly, the train started moving with Ellen and Joe inside. Billy accidentally cut the fuel line again, causing a leak. Joe and Ellen rushed out and saw Jenny about to attack Adrian. Joe stopped her with a long metal rod. He grabbed Adrian, who tried to attack him, but Ellen calmed him down. Suddenly, all the werewolves broke into the train. Joe and Ellen quickly locked the car door they were in. Adrian said one of them needed to stay behind to hold off the werewolves. Joe got knocked to the ground, and the two of them fought. They found something they could use to defend themselves, struck Adrian, and Joe quickly reacted. Adrian grabbed the keys from the ground, opened a door, and escaped, but he had to lock it behind him. The werewolves broke through another door and advanced on Joe and Ellen. Just before they could reach them, Billy appeared with a Molotov cocktail. He threw one at a werewolf, setting it on fire, and ran toward Joe and Ellen to scare the others with fire. He signaled for the others to get down. The werewolves tried to pull him down, but he escaped. Joe and Ellen ran into the forest with the werewolves chasing them. Joe told Ellen to keep running while he stayed behind to fight. The pack surrounded him, and he tried to defend himself, but one of the werewolves grabbed him and bit him, and his blood spilled. Meanwhile, Ellen reached the station, carrying Joe's badge with Adrian's name on it. In the forest, the werewolves surrounded Joe from all sides. After he transformed, he took matters into his own hands and defeated Adrian. And with that, we reach the end of our film. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the movie, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.